Hi everybody, TJ Mac Vintage Cards and Nostalgia, and I decided to make a second video this week. I put a video out on Thursday, but I have a little extra time, and this topic's been weighing in my mind to put a video together talking a little bit about hobby connections. And I've been doing YouTube now since November of 2020, so I'm coming up on 2 years, and I really never expected my channel to still be going on, to be honest with you. I just started doing videos as a way to archive my collection. It was just something to do during the time of COVID. Thought it would be nice to share something with my kids someday so they could appreciate what their dad liked about collecting and how cards played an important role in my life as a kid. Just learning about the game, the history of the players, a way just to hang out with friends growing up. And then I broke away from the hobby for a little while in the early 90s for about 7 or 8 years, and then in my early 20s I got back into it again in 2000, and now I've been collecting ever since. But YouTube has really enhanced my collecting in the sense now that I have a community of other collectors out there that I can share acquisitions to my collection that mean a lot to me, and then I find out that they mean a lot to other people in this community. They have a connection with those players or those cards, and I just find that very gratifying. But also at the same time, though, I'm very happy I wasn't on YouTube when I first started out as a collector, because for my personality, I would have struggled with it. I collected for, almost 20 years before I even got onto YouTube in my return to the hobby in 2000. So I had a lot of time to research and learn what I appreciated about cards and the history, and I allowed my collecting to evolve that way. I think if I was on YouTube for somebody like me, I would have struggled, because I would maybe be following what others are doing, and I don't know if it's more inspiration or if I'm just following them because it's the place to be and I just want to go along with it. I really was able to establish my own path as a collector first, and it helped me a lot. So now that when I'm on the community, I know that when I see a card, it's truly something that might inspire me, and I'm not just trying to stay up with the latest thing. I'm past that. I'm already, like I said, a pretty established collector. So I think from a YouTube standpoint, I'm much happier that I got in later on in the game, because I already know what I like and what I want to share with others in the community. So it just works for me. I know for others they have a different approach to it and may look at YouTube a little differently. But what I want to talk about today is Chris Stories and Cardboard. And I have 2 cards here that I'm going to show. And I'm going to show some other cards off. But this first one on the left here is this Carlton Cookie Gilchrist card. And Chris had mentioned in his video a couple weeks ago, but him and I, we probably communicate, at least once a week. We send texts to one another of cards that we see, or, hey, did you hear about this player? And this is their connection to history. And a lot of times it's not Hall of Famers. It's more times than not Hall of Famers. It's just players that maybe don't get the recognition that they deserve in history, and they may have an interesting story. And for example, we talked about Cookie Gilchrist a little bit, maybe a couple months ago. And then in early September, I texted him one night, and I said, look, Chris, I won this card. And I showed him this 1963 Fleer Cookie Gilchrist, which is his first football card besides a CFL. He had a 1958 CFL card because he played in the CFL, and that's one I would love to get. But his first, I'll say NFL card, even though it's an AFL card. The AFL has become part of NFL history now. So this would be his first card from that era. So this is a 1963 Fleer rookie. It's not a real cheap card, but not super expensive either. It's maybe a $120 card in this condition. And just a beautiful card. I love it because it's got this white border, and those white pants are just so bright on this card. I love it, and it is one that looks great in this holder here. One that I'm just thrilled to add to my collection. So anyway, I show Chris this card on that evening last month, and he comes right back to me and says, you're not going to believe this. I won the same card tonight. He won a PSA version of the card in auction the same night that I bought this card. And the odds of that happening are pretty incredible, I think. And it just kind of goes to show you that we have people in this community that we have these special connections with. And Chris is one of them for me, because I know that if I have a card of a player that's maybe a little obscure that many might not appreciate, they might appreciate the story, but they don't appreciate the card like I appreciate it. I know that Chris usually does. And next to that card here is this Don Newcomb, and I'm a big fan of the 56 top set like many, and I am putting together at some point a video on my 56 tops collection, and I want to do some things with it that I'm still working on. There's a video from 1956, a baseball video. That's my favorite video on YouTube that I'm going to share. I want to do some other added items to go along with my 56 tops cards in my collection, because it's one of those tent post sets, so to speak, that just really signify my collecting. So the 56 tops is one of them, 61 tops, 62 tops, 71 tops baseball, some of football sets as well. And I just love the 56 set, so I wanted to add this Newcomb. It's his 27-win season. He won the Cy Young and the MVP that year. Of course, the Dodgers went to the World Series against the Yankees, where they lost in 7 games. So just one of those great Brooklyn Dodger players of the 1950s. So this is another card that's on Chris's list that I showed him, and I said, oh, I won one, and he's genuinely happy when I win a card, just like I am when he gets a card to add to his collection. The other thing I appreciate is, like me, Chris is a sports nerd, like all of us in the community pretty much are. We collect cards, or pretty much most of us would be nerdy, I would think. And I love looking at cards and then equating them with pictures, especially when there's a little bit of mystery here. And on this Paul Lowe card from 1961 Topps, he's wearing what looks like a 49ers uniform. He's playing for the Chargers, and I'm looking at him like, when did Paul Lowe play for the 49ers? Why is he wearing this uniform? Here's an example of a Chargers uniform from that era. Looks nothing like the 49ers uniform. Paul Lowe was an outstanding running back in the AFL. He was an MVP, and just probably not a Hall of Famer, but a superstar of that era in the AFL. And I looked it up, and I realized that he played for the 49ers. He never played in a game with the 49ers, but he was trying out with the team in 1959 and was with them in the preseason. And here's a picture of him from 1959 with the 49ers, and he's wearing number 37, which makes sense because in the AFL, he wore number 23 his whole career. So seeing the 37 there makes sense that this would be a card of him on the 49ers. And just to drive the point home, here's another card from 1961 of John Brody, and you can see he's wearing the same uniform. The shade of the pants is a little different, but that might be the printing, but you can see the stripes and the red on the jersey there. So just one of the things I love about cards is researching the history of them, solving the mysteries, at least to me, that exist, and you can do that, especially with the internet around today. But I know that, like Chris and others in the community, certainly, I'm just really talking about Chris today, but there's so many others in the community that I know appreciate this type of stuff. This isn't the type of videos that are going to get you 5,000 subscribers probably, but like I said, I don't care about that. I just love researching the cards and just expressing my love for the hobby in this way. And like me, Chris is a person that really appreciates the beauty and the artwork of the cards, the colors. And remember one day he texted me and said, man, have you seen this U. Taylor card before? So no surprise, I had it in my collection, and I texted it back to him. I'm like, I think I have that card, and I pulled it out, and here it is. U. Taylor is not a Hall of Famer, a very good receiver. He did have a 1,000-yard season, at least one, with the Redskins in the early 50s, which that's a big deal in that era of football. And this is just a beautiful card of him stretching out to catch the ball, and you got that large Redskins emblem there, and just the colors and the greenery in the background, this blue sky with the white clouds. Just a beautiful card. And then next to him, you got Art Powell, who probably should be a Hall of Famer. He was one of the best receivers in the AFL, not named Lance Allworth or Don Maynard. And he was a big guy. He was 6'3", 215 pounds. That's pretty big for a receiver of that era. And just somebody that was a tremendous player. He led the AFL in receiving yards 2 years in a row in the early 60s. And here's him on the New York Titans. And just look at the colors on this card, how it matches the block on the bottom there, and even the little football player. Just a wonderful image. I'll bring your eyes to it a little bit more here. Like I said, just that little football player, how it matches. It's just so cool. And I found this card. One night I was texting Chris and I said, man, there's this guy that's selling all these cards for like $10, $12 each. These cards were steals in prices, so I got some of the ones I wanted and sent them over to Chris as well, and he picked up some cards he wanted. And that's just one of the great things about having a friend in the community. You can just share in your enjoyment and also share some cards that are out there that they might be interested in. Chris is someone else who appreciates just players that I enjoy, like Kenny Boyer and Dell Shoffner. He's listened to me drone on through text about Dell Shoffner and just how underrated this guy is. And just a little side note, I was excited because I saw a podcast on Dell Shoffner, and it was like a half hour long, and I'm thinking, this thing's going to be awesome. There's not a lot out there on him. He was a 5-time first-team All-Pro, which is remarkable that he's not in the Hall of Fame as a 5-time first-team All-Pro at wide receiver. It's ridiculous, personally, but I go and put the podcast on, and they just kept talking about how he was a flash in the pan, and I'm thinking, this person, and I don't really get upset too often about things, but it really upset me because he kept calling him a flash in the pan. I'm like, he had 5 first-team All-Pros. He played for almost 10 years. He had some injuries. He was an incredible player. Defenses would adjust to this guy solely because he was on the field. He was one of the earliest receivers that did that. He was fantastic. 4,000-yard seasons in an era when nobody was doing that. And just an incredible player. And the one year in 1960, he played from, I believe, 59 to 67, somewhere in that time frame. But in 1960, he went back to playing defensive back. He wasn't even a receiver all the time. And he was just an incredible player. So many people, and this would be, I guess, my little mini rant, don't know a lot about football history, and they speak as if they're trying to compare numbers all the time. You cannot do that in football. I don't care if there's 9 games, 14 games, 20-game seasons. It's never going to matter because you can't compare Bobby Lane to Dan Marino. Their statistics aren't the same. Joe Namath was a fantastic quarterback of his era. Who cares if he threw more interceptions than touchdowns? It doesn't matter. He was a fantastic player of his era. He is not overrated. He is the reason why, one of the big reasons why the AFL and NFL merged. And he deserves his place in history. So you can't look at numbers in football. It's a different game. You got to read about it and understand the context. It's so important. It's not like baseball where you can just pick up statistics and look and compare. Football is totally different, and guys like Chris appreciate that, and I just like sharing that with him. And I picked up this Ken Boyer recently, and it's another card that I was excited to add. I haven't showed this one to him, but he knows how much I like Ken Boyer. So just using Chris as that example today, there's so many in the community that are like this, that connect with one another, and I just wanted to celebrate that and just my appreciation for him and others in this community. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.